I've always been a light sleeper, so the smallest sound can wake me up in the middle of the night. It's been like that ever since my husband passed 3 years ago. Sometimes it's annoying, but other times, I think it's a blessing. Because if I hadn't woken up that one night, I don't think anyone would have found her. I live in a small neighborhood just outside of town. One of those places where everyone knows each other's business, but not in a nosy way, more like we keep an eye out for one another. I've been in this house for over 25 years, raised both my sons here. They've moved out now, married with families of their own, so it's just me and my garden these days. A few months ago, the old house at the end of the street was finally sold. It had been sitting empty for nearly a year after the previous owners moved away. I'd almost gotten used to the overgrown lawn and boarded-up windows. Then one day, just before sunset, I saw a small moving truck pull up. A girl got out. Alone. She had on these baggy clothes, her dark hair tucked under a baseball cap, and she looked exhausted. I watched her unload the truck by herself, boxes, a mattress, a foldable chair. No friends, no family, no furniture, just the bare essentials. I didn't mean to pry, but I was curious. We don't get many young people around here. I waved at her from my porch. She gave me a small, polite smile and kept working. That was the only time I saw her outside for a while. A few days went by. Her windows stayed dark at night, even though I could hear faint sounds, muffled footsteps, sometimes pacing. Once, I thought I heard crying, but it stopped before I could really be sure. I figured she was just adjusting to the place, maybe going through something personal. It wasn't my business. But then the strange deliveries started. Every evening around the same time, usually after 10, a white van would pull up in front of her house. No logos, no markings. The driver never got out. Instead, the girl would open the front door, walk briskly to the van, take a medium-sized package, and hurry back inside. No talking, no signature, nothing. Just in and out. It happened 3 nights in a row, then nothing for a week. Then it started again. I told myself it could be anything. Maybe she ran a small business. Maybe she sold stuff online. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Until one night, I saw her leave her house around midnight. She walked down the street barefoot, wearing the same sweatshirt she'd been wearing since the day she moved in. But what really caught my eye was her face. She looked dazed, like she wasn't fully awake. Her eyes were glassy and unfocused. She walked all the way to the edge of the neighborhood, stood at the dead-end street sign for a few minutes, then turned and walked back. She did the same thing the next night, and the one after that. The 4th night, I waited. I left my porch light off and watched from behind the curtains, but she never came out. Instead, the van showed up again. Except this time, it didn't just drop something off. It parked in her driveway. The engine stayed on, headlights off. No one got out. And she didn't come outside either. I stood there watching for nearly 20 minutes. Then, just as suddenly as it arrived, the van pulled away. That was the first night I heard the noise. A low, scraping sound, like furniture being dragged across concrete. It came from inside her house, the garage, I think. It lasted for maybe 10 seconds, then silence. The next morning, the girl's curtains were gone. I don't mean pulled back. I mean gone. The windows were bare. I started to get a bad feeling. Something was off. I hadn't seen her in days. No lights, no movement, nothing. So I did something I don't usually do. I knocked. No answer. I waited, knocked again. Still nothing. I even called out, "Hello? Are you all right?" but the place felt empty. As I turned to leave, I noticed something wedged in the crack of the door. A small slip of paper. It had one word written on it. Help. I froze. My first instinct was to call the police, but I didn't. I don't know why. I think I was in shock. Maybe I didn't want to overreact. Maybe I convinced myself it was a prank, or some sort of misunderstanding. That night, the van came back. This time. It stayed for nearly an hour. I didn't see what happened, but I didn't sleep a minute. Around 3 a.m., I heard the scraping again, louder this time, like something heavy being moved. I finally called the cops the next morning. I told them everything, the strange deliveries, the noises, the girl walking around like she was in a trance. The note. They said they'd do a welfare check. 2 officers showed up later that day. I watched from my window as they knocked. Waited. Knocked again. Then one of them turned the doorknob. It opened. Just like that. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but they both had their hands on their holsters. After a few minutes, they went inside. They didn't come out for a long time. When they finally did, they looked pale. The younger officer walked straight to the curb and threw up. The other one called it in on his radio. Later that night, a crime scene van pulled up, then 2 more cruisers. The girl was carried out on a stretcher. She was alive, but barely conscious. Her wrists were bandaged. Her eyes kept fluttering shut. She didn't say a word. They were in that house for hours. I found out later what had happened. The girl, her name was Mara, had been lured into some kind of online trafficking ring. The packages were equipment, cameras, tools, drugs. The van was making drop-offs for weeks while they tested her reactions, monitored her, broke her down. They had turned the house into a prison, one she didn't even know she was in at first. Those noises I heard? She was trying to block the garage door with furniture, trying to keep them from coming back. The note I found? She had written dozens like it. Slipped them into cracks in the walls, under the front mat, inside old books, hoping someone would notice. I still think about her. I never saw her again after that night. The house is back on the market now. Fresh paint. New windows. Looks almost normal again. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I swear I can hear it. That low, dragging sound. And every time I hear it, I wonder how long it would have taken for someone to notice if I hadn't been a light sleeper. Or worse, if no one ever had. When I moved into my new apartment complex, I wasn't expecting much. Just a clean place, quiet neighbors, and somewhere I could hit the reset button. I had just left a toxic job and an even worse relationship, so my only real goal was peace. The complex was one of those U-shaped buildings with a courtyard in the center. Simple, old, but well-maintained. I was on the 2nd floor, right across from Unit 209. I didn't think much of it at first. Just another door. But over the next few months, that door started to bother me in ways I still don't understand. It started off normal. I moved in, unpacked, did the usual meet and greet with a few neighbors. Everyone seemed cool. Mostly young professionals, older couples, some students. Pretty chill. Except, no one seemed to know who lived in 209. At first, I figured maybe they worked night shifts. I never saw anyone going in or out, and the curtains were always drawn. I once asked my downstairs neighbor if he knew who lived there, and he just gave me this weird shrug and said, "Someone's in there, I think." Then came the sounds. They weren't loud, just weird. Not footsteps, not music, more like movement. Slow, dragging noises. Sometimes tapping. Sometimes this soft hum, like someone mumbling to themselves. The first night I heard it, I brushed it off. Old buildings make noises. Pipes, air vents, raccoons. I get it. But it kept happening, and every time, it was coming from 209. One night, I stayed up late watching something dumb on Netflix. Around 2 a.m., I paused the show because I thought I heard whispering. I muted the TV. Nothing. Then I heard it again. Not from the hallway, but through the walls from 209. I crept closer to the wall, pressing my ear against the plaster. At first, nothing. Then I heard it, whispering, fast, like someone reciting something over and over again. I couldn't make out the words, but it wasn't just random noise. It had rhythm, like a chant. The next morning, I knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting a full-on conversation. I just wanted to see someone. Prove to myself I wasn't making it all up. The door was completely still. No creak of movement inside. Not even a shuffle. I knocked again. A voice answered low, cracked, and almost wet. Like something trying to speak through broken vocal cords. "Don't open it." That's all it said. No explanation, no greeting. Just those 3 words, rasped out like a warning or a plea. Not "go away." Not "I'm busy." Just, "Don't open it." And the way it was said, it didn't feel like it was directed at me. It felt like whoever or whatever was in there was talking to the door. I stood there for a few seconds, then walked away. I wish I could say that was the end of it. The next night, I was woken up by a loud thud. It was close. I bolted upright in bed and listened. Another thud, then a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I got up and peeked out the peephole. The hallway was dark, but something caught my eye. A shadow moving under the door of 209. It looked like feet, but there were too many. Like 3 or 4 people walking in a circle. But there were no voices, no talking, just footsteps and dragging. It went on for about 10 minutes. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I started documenting everything, writing it all down. Times, dates, what I heard. I even set up my phone on the kitchen counter one night, facing the hallway, trying to catch something on video. What I captured was worse than I expected. Around 3 a.m., the lights in the hallway flickered for just a second. And when they did, a figure appeared, not walking, just there, right in front of 209. It was tall, hunched over, arms too long, legs too thin, like a silhouette pulled from a bad dream. It stood there for maybe 3 seconds. Then the lights flickered again, and it was gone. I didn't sleep in my apartment for 2 days after that. When I finally came back, I tried to act normal. I avoided looking at 209. I kept my curtains drawn. I played music while I worked just to drown out the silence, but the tension didn't go away. Then, 3 days ago, something changed. I was leaving for work early and noticed the door to 209 was slightly open. That door had been shut tight since the day I moved in. I stopped, unsure if I should knock or just keep walking. Something about it felt off. But my curiosity won. I stepped closer, reached out, and pushed the door open. It creaked, revealing a completely dark room. No furniture, no lights, nothing but the faint smell of something metallic like rust or blood. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. Then I noticed something on the floor, just inside the doorway, a small leather-bound notebook. I picked it up. It had no name, no label, just page after page of strange drawings. Circles, symbols, eyes, lots of eyes. Pages filled with the same sentence written over and over again. He's watching through the cracks. I closed the book and left. I didn't even shut the door behind me. I gave the notebook to building management, hoping they'd finally check the unit. They thanked me, told me they'd take care of it. But the next day, I saw something that froze me. The door to 209 closed again, like it had never been touched, and taped to it the notebook, with a sticky note on the cover that said, "Return to resident." I didn't touch it. That night I packed a bag and stayed at a hotel. I don't know who or what is in Unit 209, but I do know this. Something in that room knows I saw it, and I don't think it liked that very much. I'm breaking my lease next week. I don't care about the fees. I don't care about the hassle. I just want out. And if you ever find yourself living across from an apartment where no one ever comes or goes, where the lights flicker for no reason, where the silence feels watched, don't ask questions. Don't knock. Don't get curious. Just leave it alone. Because some doors, they don't lead to rooms. They lead to something else. Something that doesn't want to be seen, but loves to watch. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. And some things don't stay behind them forever. My name's Jake, and this happened during my junior year of college. I had just moved into this old duplex a few blocks off campus. You know, the kind peeling paint, creaky floors, and probably built before color television was even a thing. But rent was cheap, it was close to class, and I had the top floor all to myself. Seemed like a win. There were 4 of us in the building, 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs. I lived across the hall from a guy named Sean. Cool dude. Kept to himself, but we got along. Downstairs, there were 2 girls. We all had our own space. It was quiet, no drama. Well, at first, the only thing that bothered me was the basement. It was weird. To get to it, you had to go through this locked door in the kitchen. The stairs were narrow, the light barely worked, and it smelled like old dirt and moldy wood. There were these strange symbols carved into the beams too, like something out of a horror movie. I figured it was just old tenants messing around. I wish I had been right. The first weird thing happened about a month in. I went down to do laundry around midnight. Totally forgot I'd thrown my clothes in earlier. When I got down there, all my laundry was folded, perfectly. Like socks paired, shirts stacked, the whole deal. I thought maybe one of the girls had done it to be nice, but when I asked them the next day, they both looked at me like I was crazy. Sean swore it wasn't him either. I let it go, figured maybe someone was just bored. Then, one night, I woke up to footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I thought it was Sean heading to the bathroom. So, I got up, opened my door, nothing. The hallway was dark and empty. I even checked the bathroom. Nobody. Next morning, I asked Sean if he'd been up. He said he never left his room. He joked, "Maybe the basement ghost's checking on us." I laughed, but it didn't feel like a joke. A few nights later, I was gaming late, headset on. Out of nowhere, I felt this cold breeze behind me. My window was shut, so I turned around, and there sitting on my desk was a photo. I hadn't put it there. It was an old Polaroid, kinda yellowed, but I could still make it out. It was the basement, our basement, and in the corner of the photo, there was someone standing, facing the wall, perfectly still. I grabbed the photo and went straight to Sean's room, woke him up. He didn't think it was funny. Said we needed to talk to the landlord. So we did. Next day, we called him and asked if he knew anything about the photo. He paused, got real quiet, then said, "You boys just stay out of that basement. It's got history." Yeah, that didn't help. Later that week, I woke up again. This time, to a dragging sound, like furniture scraping across concrete, coming from the basement. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, I should have stayed in bed, but I didn't. I grabbed a flashlight, unlocked the basement door, and went down. It was colder than usual, damp. The smell was stronger, like metal and rot. When I got to the bottom, I stopped dead in my tracks. The laundry machines were gone. In their place, right in the middle of the room, was a single wooden chair, and someone was sitting in it. Thin, pale, hunched over. I froze. My flashlight flickered. I barely breathed. Then, the figure slowly turned its head toward me. Its eyes were hollow, skin like wax. And then, it whispered my name. I dropped the flashlight and ran. Fell on the stairs, slammed the basement door shut behind me. Next morning, I checked again. Everything was back to normal. Machines were there. Chair was gone. No figure. No photo. Nothing. Sean believed me. So did the girls downstairs, especially after they started hearing whispers, lights flickering, cold spots in their room. We all agreed. We were moving out by the end of the semester. Before I left, I asked the landlord again what he meant by history. He sighed, said the building used to be a single house, owned by a man who disappeared. They never found his body, just his journal. The last page said, "She's down there with me now. I can't leave. I don't want to. I don't know who she is, and I never want to find out." My daughter Ellie is 8 years old. Last year, something happened that forced us to leave the home where she spent most of her childhood. It's not a story I tell lightly. It still makes me feel sick thinking about it. We lived in that house for almost 5 years. It was supposed to be our forever home. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect for us. A cozy little house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. The neighbors were friendly enough, mostly older folks who had been living there for decades. The only house that was ever a little strange was the one right across from us. A rundown place that always seemed like it was watching the rest of the street. The man who lived there, Mr. Langley, was a mystery. Mid-60s, scruffy gray beard, always wearing a dark green jacket no matter the weather. In all the years we lived there, I don't think I heard him say more than 5 words. He mostly stayed inside, his blinds always drawn, his porch light always flickering. Ellie used to be afraid of him. She would say, "Mommy, he's always looking at our house." I would brush it off. "He's just a lonely old man," I told her. I wish I had listened to her more seriously. One summer afternoon, Ellie was playing in our front yard while I was sweeping the porch. It was one of those really bright, hot days where even the air felt heavy. At one point, I glanced up and noticed Mr. Langley standing in his yard, just standing there facing Ellie. Not moving, not saying anything. I froze for a second. When he noticed me looking, he turned and shuffled back inside like nothing happened. It unsettled me, but again, I told myself maybe he was just eccentric. Maybe he was harmless. A few nights later, things escalated. I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of tapping. At first, I thought it was the trees brushing against the windows. But when I got up and peeked through the curtain, my stomach dropped. Across the street, Mr. Langley's porch light was on, but it wasn't flickering anymore. It was flashing on and off, like some kind of signal. I stared for a few seconds before I saw movement at the edge of my yard. It was him. He was standing just inside the tree line, halfway between his house and ours. I quickly closed the curtain and woke up my husband. By the time we both got outside, the yard was empty. No sign of him. The flashing porch light had gone out, too. We called the non-emergency line to report suspicious behavior. But they said unless he trespassed or directly threatened us, there wasn't much they could do. It made me feel helpless, trapped. A week later, while Ellie was playing with chalk on the driveway, she came running inside, crying. She said someone had taken pictures of her. I rushed outside, heart racing, but didn't see anyone. When I asked Ellie to explain, she said she saw a flash in the trees, and a man in a green jacket holding something shiny. That night, I checked every window and door 3 times before going to bed. Still, I barely slept. A few nights after that, the real nightmare happened. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to Ellie screaming. I ran to her room, my husband right behind me. She was sitting up in bed, crying uncontrollably, pointing at the window. I turned, and for just a split second, I swear I saw the shadow of someone pulling back from the glass. I ran outside barefoot, scanning the street, the trees everywhere. Nothing. We called the police again. This time, they took it more seriously, sending 2 officers to patrol the neighborhood for a few hours. But they didn't find anything. The next morning, when I checked the yard, I found something. Half hidden under a bush near Ellie's window, there was a small disposable camera. The old-fashioned kind you have to develop. We handed it over to the police, but they warned us that unless they could tie it directly to Mr. Langley, it still wouldn't be enough for a warrant or charges. That was the final straw. We put the house up for sale the next day, packed our things, left within a month. In the time it took for the house to sell, we stayed with my sister 2 towns over. I never once went back to the old neighborhood, not even to check the mail. Months later, I heard from one of the old neighbors that Mr. Langley's house had been condemned. Apparently, when the city finally got inside, they found piles and piles of photographs. Thousands of them. Mostly of children playing outside. Some of them were of Ellie. The police finally opened an investigation, but Mr. Langley had disappeared. No one has seen him since. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder if he found a new neighborhood, new kids to watch, new windows to stand outside of. Wherever he is, I just pray he never finds us again.